Welcome back to AV Veterans Talk. We're continuing our conversation with Danny Bazzell, this week's guest. So, military career done. You didn't buy the re-enlistment thing from your...
Well, I made the mistake of listening to my re-enlistment NCO. I was on the cusp of re-enlisting or not, but I knew I didn't want to stay greasy and smelling like diesel fuel and can't hear for the rest of my life. So I started looking at alternatives. Another tank commander and myself, we applied for flight school, went through all the orientation to become qualified to go to Fort Rucker to fly helicopters, and he got accepted. I got bombed out because of hay fever, of all things.
Oh yeah, that's
not being a pressurized cabin, you need to be able to clear your sinuses. So so then I tried for explosive ordnance disposal. Mechanical aptitude was one of the high requirements in that, and I passed all the requirements for that and got accepted to go to Redstone Army Arsenal to be an EOT technician. And then I started thinking, do I really want to play with bombs for a living? And so I looked at military counterintelligence and got accepted to go to that school. So here I have three options: stay as a mechanic or go into one of these other two fields. And my re-enlistment NCO, he says, there's a program underway right now that if you decide to ETS and get out of the service, he says, if you change your mind within 1 year of your ETS date, you can come back in with no loss of rank. You lose time in service, but you don't lose rank. You don't have to go back to boot camp or anything like that. And I said, well, I'll take that option and see what the civilian world holds for me. And if I don't like it, within a year, I'll come back and was leaning towards the EOD, but who knows where that would have gone. It's a non sequitur at this point. But got out in April of 1983, and I went back to working in the roofing business. And then on August 23rd of 1983, I was working on the second floor of a hospital in the valley, San Gabriel Valley, and slipped. And fell 20 feet and broke myself. So about a year and a half, 2 years later, after I had recovered from breaking my right leg in 6 places, I thought about going back into the service, and I went down and went through all the re-enlistment deal, and I would have had to gone to boot camp and all that again because too much time had passed. But the Walking Dead, as they're doing that full body inspection, he looked at my leg and saw all the bright pink scars, and he says, "Son, what are you trying to pull?" He says, you're not coming into the Army. Get out of here. And I said, well, are you the final say-so? He says, no, you can. This was National Guard I was trying to go into. He says, you can appeal to the Surgeon General of the State of California, and if he reviews your case and lets you, then you can come in. So I filed all the paperwork for the appeals, and to this day I've never heard whether they're going to accept me back or not. So in fact, when Desert Storm broke out, I thought, now's my appeal's going to come in, because we knew it was going to be a tank war. So anyway, so I ended up working, after I recovered from that, I went to work for what is now PPG Aerospace, aerospace paint company out of Glendale, and got hired on as their motor pool mechanic. Made it a point every day to go in and talk to the corporate officers and people in the corporate building and learn who people were and what they did. And the guy that was the national sales manager for the Marine Division dealing with the U.S. Navy stopped me one day and he goes, "You're our mechanic, right?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "You want to get out of the motor pool and come and work for me?" And I said, "Doing what?" He says, "Well, I need a tech rep to work with the Navy." He says, "You've got military experience, so you know how to deal with the military. You have the mechanical aptitude. Would you like to do it?" And you get a company car, you get an expense account, you get a salary, you get to travel. I said, "Sign me up." So I spent almost 8 years working with the U.S. Navy on ships, either at San Diego, Long Beach Naval Shipyard, or Pearl Harbor. And so also up in Bremerton, Oregon. In fact, I used to visit the Missouri when she was a museum piece in Bremerton, and then I helped recommission her for Desert Storm when she came down here to Long Beach. So spent 8 years with the U.S. Navy. And,
it's funny, I think, part of your story that you just shared there, because we had Jason Watts in the hot seat here not too long ago, and of course he's still in the Army National Guard, and his legs were probably twice as bad as what yours were. And of course they brought him back into the fold, but during that time period, obviously, what are you trying to pull off?
Everything happens for a reason.
It does. So anyway, I like the way your military interaction is so diverse. I mean, across so many different.
3 years in the Army.
And
almost 8 years with the U.S. Navy. I have been to sea with the gone to sea with the Navy.
Yeah.
Helped get some of our ships ready for the Persian Gulf escort duty, and working on that. And then, in fact, I was down in San Diego shipyard with the USS Antietam CG-54 when the ground war started in
Wow.
the first Gulf War. Machine gun bunkers on the piers down there, and everything was kind of interesting.
Oh, that's good
Frogmen
stuff.
in the water.
Yeah.
Then in 1993, President Clinton downsized the military pretty drastically, and my position was one of 4 nationwide, and the company cut back to only 1.
Oh, man.
And I didn't have the seniority to stay, so I ended up looking for another job.
Yeah.
So ended up working here in the Antelope Valley doing a number of different jobs. But I ended up at KMix Radio as a sales rep in 1995, trying to say, well, can I sell radio advertising? And there was the sales manager at that time was a gentleman by the name of Lloyd Haney. And Lloyd knew I was kind of struggling because I had been living in the valley for a few years, but I didn't know anybody here. He says, Danny, he says, if you're going to succeed in this valley, you got to know people, you got to network. And he pulls out a single piece of paper and hands it to me, and he goes, fill this out, bring me a check for $40 tomorrow, and I'll get you into the fold and start learning who people are around here. And so I looked at it, took it home, and it's this thing called the Edwards Air Force Base Civilian Military Support Group.
Nice.
Civ-Mil.
Yeah.
And so I filled it out, gave him a check, and joined Civ-Mil 22 years ago. And I've been all the way from member to director, secretary, vice president, and president for 2 years. And
Nice.
that was 3 years ago.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and take our next break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about Edwards and stuff you got going on now, okay?
You got it.
All right. Thanks, Danny. Be right back. I'm Bob Alvis, and thank you for joining us for this segment of AV Veterans Talk.